We live in the age of remakes. Almost every highly rated game right now is a remake of something that came before. But at least we can say those are good remakes. Like this one, for an example, Resident Evil 4. The original game became a cult classic and to this day is considered to be one of the greatest Resident Evil games in the franchise, if not the greatest game. To the point that some people didn't really want this remake in the first place. Why remake something that worked so well? And when you look back at the work that Capcom did with Resident Evil 3, you start getting worried. And as my favorite Resident Evil games are 4 and 7, I was starting to be worried for what's about to come. So the day has come, Resident Evil 4 Remake has unlocked on Steam, I fired it up and I got lost again. The game has taken me from the start. So what would you expect from the Resident Evil Remake? Better graphics, better gameplay? So yeah, this is exactly what you receive in this package and more. At least the game is finally abandoning this tanky playstyle that the original game had. Instead, we are taking the gameplay that was utilized in RE2 and RE3 remakes and we are putting it into RE4 environment. To that, we can add beautifully modeled terrain, landscapes, attention to details, and we have a top-notch remake that at this point sits on 97% on Steam. And this is a huge achievement. And we have to take under consideration that we are talking about a PC port of the game that was released in 2023. So how the game works? On my rig, it works really well. RTX 3060, i9, 10900, settings, everything to max, 60 FPS constantly, and even with the OBS working in the background, recording the gameplay, the game keeps this 60 FPS 99% of the time. And setting everything to max is not recommended for my RTX 3060. It genuinely passes the 12 gigabytes of VRAM that I was like, what the fuck? But the game keeps this 60 FPS. Really huge props for the optimization department at Capcom. But I have to say, setting the max settings for hair is actually really weird. It looks really good and like amazingly good, I would even say. But when you are in the scene that those hair should be blown by wind, they look like everybody in the game has a perm for some reason. So just really small dig at the hair animation. We can change everything in the settings from hair to dismemberment, except for one thing that has surprisingly really small range of settings. FOV. Why would you limit me to this? Personally, I had to get used to this FOV, and after the first session I ended up with a headache. It felt like the character was too close to my screen. It took me a few hours to get used to that FOV, and yet in the final seconds of the game I noticed the same problem again. But other than that, everything else was fine. Gameplay is also fun, bunch of different weapons to choose from, ability to play stealthy in a lot of sequences is also a huge upgrade. You can silently take out multiple enemies in the area, if not all of them. That will definitely save you some ammo. In other sequences, they try to seem like you can make it stealthy only to fuck with you and show you that no, you can right now fight them all at once with the 5 bullets that you have left. Interesting things were also added to the game itself. You see, there is something like knife durability in the game. With each use of the knife, it degrades and it will break. And if it breaks, you cannot perform parries that sometimes will save your life. Those parries were also added into the game and are very useful. And if you end up using your knife a lot, and believe me, you will end up paying a lot of money to fix it. It's like the creators decided, yeah, you are going to have too much money on your hands, and wouldn't you be surprised if I told you that they were completely right. Everything in the game in terms of loot is random, but I felt like some kind of shake playing it, constantly having 100k of money to spend whenever I was talking to the merchant. I do realize that when I play these types of games, I tend to lick every wall, but I didn't even gather everything. And you can gather all sorts of things: bracelets, crowns, masks, gold caps, rubies, you name it, everything, and merchant will buy it. He will even buy the key that is completely useless to the first hut in the sequence that you can't go back to, and he will pay 200 coins for that. You can also take jewels, those rubies and stuff, and place them into those cups and pans that you are actually finding out throughout the game, and this will raise the price of those items. You are going to receive bonuses if you equip the item with the jewels of the same color. You're going to be receiving the biggest bonus, which is a 3 of the kind. You can receive also the bonus if you're going to equip the item with 3 different jewels, which is going to be slightly less, but also a bonus. It also feels like a structure of the game is more open, especially when you are on the lake, where you can just go wherever you want, and as a little good player, I gathered almost everything that was to gather. You can also destroy the floating barrels on the lake. That will give you more money. Yes, money. And for that money you can actually go and buy yourself some pretty things like better weapons and rocket launcher that I was able to buy in the middle of the game, where in the original game I had to really try and work my ass off to buy the rocket launcher at the end of the game. In here I just bought it in the middle of the game and had it in my inventory for the rest of the game, just for the sake of having it as a precaution more than a requirement. So yes, of course they also changed a few things, and one of the biggest changes is also, like mentioned previously, a lake area of the game. The remake also added these side missions that you can fulfill in the locations. They actually encourage you to explore more. Blue medallions, getting rid of the rats, going into the dungeons and fighting the ultimate knight. Really cool stuff that are going to give you the special crystals that you can actually purchase some exclusive items for those crystals. You cannot buy them with normal money, and those items, even if you don't need them, can grant you additional money if you are in need of ones that you are probably not going to. Lewis in this game has more agency than he had in the original game. He's way more present in here and has more impact on the storyline. Feels like he has more character to himself than only being a goofball that he felt like in the original game. He will also help you get through some levels, and no, he is not only going to look cool, he will actually shoot enemies, and if you get grabbed by one, he is going to save your ass. And I'm not talking about the hot sequence in the game that was also present in the original game. Lewis is way more present in this remake than he was in the original one. Ashley this time is not an annoying brat that she used to be in the original game. Original Ashley was probably one of the worst things that happened to Resident Evil 4. Right now, I liked her. I really liked her. She felt like she is an actual person rather than complete moron that doesn't even know how to use a ladder. And yes, she actually uses ladders in this game, and Leon doesn't have to catch her every time. Even if there is no ladder and Leon is not going to catch her, she is going to eventually come down by herself. Of course, there's a plenty of geniuses on Twitter and Reddit, on Steam forums, that say that the game is finished and done and ruined because they can't look under Ashley's skirt. And as a pervert myself, I must admit, I didn't even know you could do such a thing in Resident Evil 4. I guess we have a different priorities in Resident Evil games. I play for fun, horror aspect and survival aspect. Some people play to, I don't know, look at Ashley's panties. I have a bunch of different games if I want to see this kind of action on Steam, so no thanks. I'm not going to be taking points for it from the game. Performances delivered by the actors are also really strong, but here's the situation that we have to mention. Ada Wong is kind of something that split people. Ada sounds way more different than she did on the original game. She sounds way more bored and without real emotions, rather than playful like she did in the original game. And personally, I like it more than the original one. It embodies the fact that she really doesn't really give a shit about what's happening, and she just here to take the care of the business that she has in this place and get the fuck out. She doesn't give a shit about anything else, maybe except for Leon, because we all know that Ada and Leon have a different, like, weird relationship. So, and one of the biggest changes was also done to the one of the game's bosses, Salazar. In the original game, he was young-looking, bratty shithead with really funny stuff to say, like, "Where's the sound of one's impalement?" Here, he just looks like a grandma that lost a lot of height, and this is probably the result of the Capcom going for a more, like, dark and serious tone of the game than campy one like original Resident Evil 4. Unfortunately, some things are also cut out. For an example, no tractor sequences, no one of my favorite, the gondola ride sequences, no stuff like this, and a few more, which kind of sucks if you ask me, but the game is still going strong. And obviously no Ada Wong sequences that were additional content. I have a feeling like they are going to be released as a DLCs. As a technical standpoint, as I mentioned previously, the game works phenomenally well. It seems really polished, no game-breaking bugs, performance issues, besides one. You see, when you are using a scope for the rifle in this game, somehow the FPS drop from 60 to 50, and this is notorious. And I checked, I'm not the only one that has this problem. Like, Steam forum is full with people complaining about why is this even happening, but besides that, everything else works completely fine. I would say this is one of the best PC ports we received in a long time. Of course, there are a few things like that, but this happened only once. Other instances of things didn't really work out well, where when I step on the trap and the chainsaw guy is going to take a swing at me, he's not going to rip me apart. Nothing will happen, and this happened a few times during my playthrough. And yes, I don't really get it why the enemy, when he lands a hit with a knife on me, he will stab me 3 times, get my health to the minimum. Like, what the heck happened here? And this is not the thing that happens on hardcore or professional. My first playthrough was on normal, so I don't know why this worked that way, but it seems like the enemy is just spazzing out. So the conclusion to this review is the game is actually kind of masterpiece, and I don't use this word lightly. We can see that Capcom tries to take more serious approach to the game. That's why some of the more ridiculous sequences were taken out and replaced with something different, more believable. And yes, I do know, serious and believable in the Resident Evil. Right now, last thing that we have to do is pray that Capcom is going to give us good Resident Evil 5 remake and completely reimagine Resident Evil 6, just keeping the most important story bits. Comment, like, subscribe, hugely recommend you to buy this game and play through. And remember, beware of Las Plagas. Bye.